I'm Cheryl Ann Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for those of us who still dare to want it all, who have big dreams and bold ambitions. I think we deserve to have a big, full life and the freedom to enjoy it. So let's design our next chapter together for brilliance, not burnout. Each week, I'll bring ideas, insight, and a fresh perspective to keep you growing into a life that feels as good as it looks. Brilliant Balance, your life, your way. Now let's get started. This is episode 386 of the Brilliant Balance podcast, What Your Planning Addiction is Costing You. So welcome, my friends, back to the show. I'm so glad that you're tuning in today for this episode because we're going to be talking about success today, the kind of success that we sit back and admire from afar, maybe the kind of success that we aspire to deep in our hearts, and what it takes to get there. And I have a feeling that what you believe it takes to get there is not actually the key ingredient to success. And so I want to rattle your brain a little bit today and shift a paradigm here on what it takes to achieve success and see if we can get you some freedom to move forward into momentum because of that. So I want you to ask yourself as we kick this off, have you ever watched someone step into an incredible level of success? You know, maybe it's somebody that you follow on social media. Maybe it's somebody where you've seen a documentary about them or read a book about their story. Maybe it's somebody in your workplace that you've watched ascend to a level on that ladder that you're just really impressed by, right? Maybe it's somebody in your community that's done really great work. Like pick someone that you've watched have extraordinary success by your definition. And I want you to ask yourself, what do you believe was the key ingredient to their success? What do you think it is? Let it kind of bubble up, just your first thought. And I'm willing to bet that the first thing you thought about was, I think they got lucky, right? I think there was a real element of luck, of be it make magic, right? Being in the right place at the right time with the right people and just pixie dust. Right? And that is how they got there. Sometimes we connect that luck to something we call connections, right? I bet they've got great connections. You know, I bet they know someone who was able to help them get to that level. I think we hear that a lot as a way to think like, well, if I don't have that, I'm not going to have the success. And the third thing I think comes up a lot is I bet they had a brilliant plan. I remember hearing about Sarah Blakely's success with Spanx early on, right? When it was popping. And, you know, you think about, gosh, she must have just sat and hatched this perfect business plan and like gone out to get the investors. And of course, as I'm sure you know, that's not at all what happened, right? It was a much more gradual and kind of jagged journey along the way, very much self-led and self-guided. But I think we look at these stories of success and we think either they got lucky, they knew someone, or they had a really genius plan. They had the best idea and they had this perfect plan that they were able to execute. And that's what delivered them this extraordinary level of success. Sometimes I think about this. This is a little bit of a obtuse analogy, but bear with me here. Sometimes I think about this in book clubs when, you know, if you've ever been in a book club, and I know a lot of you have, I have a lot of readers in this audience. If you've ever been in a book club and you are discussing the plot line of the book, right? Maybe it's a fiction book and you are really creating these, you know, metaphorical connections between imagery that's introduced early in the book and how it shows up later in threads of characters. And you think like, wow, this author was just a genius to push all this symbolism into the book and pull this whole thing together. And then if you've ever heard the author talk about the book and they're like, yeah, no, I had no idea that that's how people would interpret this, right? That was not intentional. It actually was something that the reader is pulling out post hoc as a connection, but it was happenstance. There was no intention behind it. That's because that phenomenon with authors is because like strategy is sometimes better deduced after the fact. Even if it was absent at the beginning, we can often, our brains are so wired for story that we'll go back and kind of find a strategy where none actually existed. And that is the exact same thing that happens when we are looking at success from the outside looking in. We go, I'll bet, look at this thread of strategy. She knew just what she was doing in every one of those moves. And if you actually talk to the individual, they're often like, I had no idea how this was going to turn out, right? I was taking a bunch of chances along the way. I was hedging my bets and taking measured risk and then like steering. Look at what happened. Okay. Because the reality is that our belief about what leads to success is not actually the thing that most predictably leads to success. So there are a few paradigms, a few beliefs that we hold about success that are driving our behavior as people who are in the climb, right? We are aspiring to the next level, whatever level we're starting from, we're in that climb. And we have a few paradigms or a few beliefs that we are clinging to that we think are the thing that's going to get us ahead. And in fact, might be the very thing that's going to hold us back. That's what I want to unpack today. I want to talk about these 3 paradigms that we actually need to break. Now, they have some scientific backing. There's good reason that we're holding these beliefs. Like we're not making them up. We've been taught them or we've absorbed them. And yet we need to find an alternate paradigm if we want to get true forward momentum and true success. Okay. So the first belief that we hold, see if this is true for you, is I need to figure everything out before I get started. Right? Before I take action, I need like the perfect plan. So we will sit down with our colored pens or our laptop and our whiteboards, and we are going to craft the perfect plan. We're going to figure it all out before we take that first step of action. And the problem with this, of course, is that all of that overthinking, all of that planning creates like analysis paralysis. We end up really by accident thinking about too many options, too many ways forward that could work. And they start to compete with each other, right? They start to be at odds with one another. We have this illusion that more thinking, more planning is going to get us to absolute clarity, when in reality, the clarity comes from movement. Right? The whole thing is flipped upside down. There's the principle of decision fatigue that you're probably familiar with, that too many choices paralyze us, right? They lead us to inaction rather than to progress. And so the women who take messy first steps, like launching the business before they've perfected the website or the logo or the business card, right? Or even the business plan, often find faster success than those who really work to have the perfect plan or keep revising the plan along the way. Okay. So this first belief that I need to figure every single thing out before I take action has to be replaced with a new belief. And the new belief is that action ignites momentum, right? Instead of waiting for perfect clarity, perfect risk of, adjustments where we've kind of mitigated all the risk out of the plan, we want to get ourselves into motion. Because there's another scientific principle that can be at play here, which is an object in motion stays in motion, right? So that's Newton's first law of motion. So that the principle that if we get ourselves into action, we will stay in action. And if we don't get ourselves into action, we will stay stuck. So instead of waiting for absolute perfect clarity, absolute perfect plan, we want to take imperfect action and trust that that imperfect action actually ignites the momentum cycle. It gets us moving. So I was thinking about a client. I think I actually told this story before in the podcast because I love it so much. I had a client who was preparing to run her first road race. It was a 5K. She was not a runner. And she was investigating one of those like couch to 5K programs. And she came to a coaching call. It was a group call and was outlining for us everything that she had done to get ready, right? So she had investigated different couch to 5K programs and was, comparing and contrasting them for us with some level of detail about the merits of these various programs. She had investigated running shoes, gone to running stores, had her feet assessed, purchased running shoes, done the trial runs in those running shoes in the store to like make sure they were exactly the right ones. She had investigated, researched running gear, different attire that she could run in. She had the perfect water bottle procured that she could take with her. You could see where this is going, right? There were lots and lots and lots of planning steps. But guess what she hadn't done? She hadn't gone for a run. And so she came to the call and she's like, what's the next thing I need to do? And I said, you need to go for a run, right? Like if you want to run the race, you have to run. And so I think it's just the perfect illustration of this first paradigm shift, that rather than trying to figure every single thing out before you take action, you want to embrace the idea that imperfect action actually ignites momentum, kicks off that momentum cycle, and gets you in gear on your path to success. Okay. Hey, are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to the next level? I want to introduce you to the Prosperity Playbook. This is your ultimate guide to building a more profitable and sustainable business. The Prosperity Playbook has been designed for business owners like you who are ready to transform their financial future. With step-by-step guidance, practical tools, and expert advice, you'll gain the confidence and control that you need to master your business finances. Just imagine having a clear roadmap to achieve your financial goals with insights that help you make smarter decisions and grow your business with ease. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale, the Prosperity Playbook has got you covered. And here's the best part. As a Brilliant Balance listener, you can get lifetime access to the playbook for just $199. Unlock the secrets to financial success and join a whole community of empowered entrepreneurs. So don't wait. Visit theprosperityplaybook.com/brilliant balance. It's linked in the show notes, and start your journey to prosperity today. Remember, your business deserves to thrive, and with the Prosperity Playbook, it will. So what's the second belief? The second belief that we have when we are trying to pursue success in anything is, I have to come up with my plan on my own. Maybe this is not true for all people, but for the women that seem to find their way into the Brilliant Balance community, there is this pride in having an original idea and in figuring it out on our own. Like, I will figure things out on my own, right? Not just come up with the idea, but also come up with the plan, learn how I'm going to execute it. Like, all of it is going to be on my own. And I think the problem here is that women have been conditioned to believe that letting people in, like we call it asking for help. I would say it's just accepting input, right? Letting people into your circle is a weakness, that somehow we're either burdening others by asking them for perspective, or that we are admitting that we're some kind of loser because we didn't have all the answers on our own. So what will happen is we will loop and loop and loop at trying to figure things out. We are like Google aficionados, right? We will Google the crap out of anything we're trying to learn because it's safe and we think we can like figure it out. Now add ChatGPT. We'll ChatGPT our way through everything. I mean, I think they thought that women at midlife were going to be late adopters of ChatGPT. I think we're early on adopting, like, wow, this is a way that I can figure things out without talking to another human. Okay. But we put ourselves into these self-imposed isolation chambers where we're banging our head against the wall trying to figure things out on our own. And in reality, the best ideas, the best kind of like way to get ourselves educated and smarter and kind of up to the next level is by connecting with other people who are already at that level. So surrounding ourselves with action takers makes us more likely to take action. In fact, whatever you surround yourself with makes you more likely to do that thing, right? And this is the social contagion theory that, you know, if whoever you are around, this is like you're like the 5 people that you spend your most time with, whatever kind of environment you have put yourself into, you will become like those people. So if you surround yourself with people who already have the kind of success you aspire to, or they know how to get it, or they're taking action in that direction, you are likely to achieve this success faster than if you are doing it on your own. So rather than feeling like I have to come up with every single thing on my own, the new belief is support fuels success, right? The most successful people have people around them who are also successful, right? And they are solving problems together, playing spitball with ideas, right? Riffing off of each other's ideas, making them better, advancing them faster than those people who are trying to tough it out alone. We have some kind of like sick pride in figuring everything out on our own. And the reality is it makes us lonely and it slows us down. And if you get yourself into an environment with people who are sharing ideas, encouraging each other, saying, yes, you can, right? And pushing you to kind of bring out the very best of you, that is the accelerator towards success. So it is support that fuels success. Success is rarely a solo act. It's just rarely a solo act. Having the right people around you accelerates your progress. And in fact, there is a scientific principle at play here as well. This one is the Pygmalion effect. Okay. So look at me being all psychologist on you today. The Pygmalion effect is the one that says that the expectations of those around you actually shape your performance. High expectations raise performance. You don't have to look any further than a junior high athletic team. If you look at like a junior high sports team, even a grade school sports team, if you have a coach with high expectations, that team is going to perform better. It's like we play up. If you have a teacher in high school calculus that convinces every kid in that class that they can get a 5 on that AP exam, that class is going to perform better than the teacher who's like, I don't know, you guys are a bunch of losers. I don't know how this is going to go, right? High expectations fuel high performance. So being in a place where we are around other people, whether they are advisors or peers or bosses, right? Coaches, mentors who are raising us to our highest level, that support is the thing that fuels success far more than sitting in our rooms by ourselves trying to figure out the perfect plan. Okay. So that's the second one. We have to lay down this belief that we have to figure every single thing out on our own. The third belief that gets in our way is that more strategy equals more success, right? If I just get a better plan, if I have a more sophisticated plan, if I have a more thorough plan, if I have a more long-range plan, more strategy equals more success. Now, I'm not going to argue that strategy doesn't matter. Of course it does. Of course it does. Okay. But it is not the thing that is the accelerator. In fact, what we have to do is get ourselves into action so that we can steer. Okay. Because progress is not linear. I've said that before, but it trends upward. So if we can get into a cycle of rapid experimentation instead of a cycle where we're standing at the starting line strategizing things, we will get there faster. Over planning, here's the biggest problem with over planning. By the way, I am like guilty as hell of this. This is something I do all the time. Over planning is like my Achilles heel. And I have to really challenge myself to lay down the planning tools, right? The notebooks, the journals, the spreadsheets, and get myself into action where everything happens. Because over planning creates a false sense of productivity, right? We think we're being so productive and so busy because look at the plans we're making. We're rewriting to-do lists and color coding our plans and, addressing them to timelines and putting them into new tools. All of it is we're just rearranging the furniture. What drives success is execution. Right? There's diminishing returns on planning at a certain point. Do you need a plan? Yes. Do you need the perfect plan? Absolutely not. In fact, entrepreneurs who launch before having a full strategy often iterate faster. This is kind of the lean startup model. They build stronger businesses than those who get stuck in the planning phases. So when I get a new entrepreneur, even an experienced one, but especially a new entrepreneur, often I'm dealing with women who are making the transition from corporate careers and they have an entrepreneurial dream. And I think it's because that was my story, because I left a 15-year corporate career to start a company 15 years ago. And I have kind of a foot in each world. That seems to be a particular kind of person who shows up for coaching. When I'm dealing with a new entrepreneur, they want to write a business plan. And I'm usually coaching them out of it. Let's look at more of an iterative model where we get to minimum viable product, minimum viable service, and we get that out and run some experiments so we can see how it works and learn from it. Because progress isn't linear, but it trends up. So instead of fearing failure, instead of saying, I have to have everything perfectly figured out, I have to have the perfect business plan, the perfect strategy, all my numbers are perfect. The only thing I can tell you as someone who has been in a corporate environment for 15 years and then as an entrepreneur for 15 years is your numbers are never going to be right. Whatever you think your plan is, whatever you think is going to happen, that's probably the one scenario I can promise you is not going to play out. And so the skill is not in perfect forecasting. It's not in having a perfect plan of how it's going to go. It's in agility. The skill is in knowing how are you going to run an experiment, quickly read the results, adjust on the fly, and get back out there again, right? So many things in business, in life, are malleable. They are fixable. They are addressable. You can make adjustments as you go. But we get into this headspace of like, I have to have it all perfect before I start, instead of I got to get started so I can steer. I love that phrase, ready, fire, steer, right? We were all taught ready, aim, fire. But ready, fire, steer is like, let's go. And then we'll make the adjustments while like the game is already in play. Okay. Business to me is one of those infinite games. Your career is an infinite game. You are going to iterate and iterate and iterate. If there is something that you want to do where you want to achieve success and you find yourself standing at the starting line, before the starting line, fixing to get ready to get started, this is your call today to say, in the end, it is not a perfect plan that fuels progress. It's actually more like a series of magic moments where you take bold steps before you feel ready. Where, think back to a moment somewhere in your life where you took a step before you felt fully ready, and then you felt the rush of adrenaline come in to be like, all right, I guess it's go time. Let's do the thing. Chances are it created something really special, like your own magic came into that moment to carry you forward. And when you can do that over and over again, using those small wins to boost motivation, right? To kind of push you through the next little surge, and then you just repeat that cycle, that is an exhilarating way to live. And it even more predictably leads you to your definition of success. So that's your invitation for today to consider, do you need to make one of these paradigm shifts? Are you an overplanner? Do you have a planning addiction, right? Are you stuck trying to find the perfect plan? And what is it going to take to move you into a cycle of imperfect action where you can learn from the actions you're taking and steer and continue to move yourself forward? I am right here to support you with that in any way that I can. I am happy to be in your corner, cheering you on from afar or from up close. So if there is something that you need support with and you want to talk about it, you know where to find me. Best place is just go to the Brilliant Balance website, right? brilliant-balance.com. There's ways to connect with me from there. And you can find out about all the ways that this community of women can support you in finding success, whatever it looks like for you. That's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.